Hi, everybody. It is Natalie and Rebecca here with you today on Energy, Connection, and Courage at Work. And we're doing something a little bit different today. Instead of bringing in one of our guests to have a conversation, it is just Rebecca and I here today. And today is our last podcast episode of 2024. And I'll be honest, I'm a little bit sad, but we thought, how could we end our podcast year? Because we've been doing this for 1 year now, and this was our first year trying it. And so Rebecca and I are here today to talk about what that experience has been like. We're also going to be sharing with you some of our own favorite podcasts and a little bit around our plans for the future. And so I'm going to hand it over to Rebecca.
Okay, thanks, Nat. All right, I'm ready to jump right in. So maybe before we think about what we love and would do differently from our own podcast, let's just share with people like what we're listening to. So, Nat, what is it like not your playlist, but your list of podcasts and fall? Like, what's your number one podcast right now that you're listening to?
My favorite podcast right now is called Mic Drop. And Mic Drop is a podcast where, I wish I could remember his name. My brain isn't what it used to be. I would love to say his name. I'll remember it in a minute. But he features keynote speakers from around the world, and he's featuring the most successful speakers from around the world and how they're doing things differently and how they're creating extraordinary experiences in keynote rooms. And it is just fascinating. It's everything from speakers who are doing magic tricks on the stage and how they started in their career and how they got there. And then they also speak with speakers bureau owners and what they look for in speakers around keynotes. And so some of our listeners might know that one of our company values is to create extraordinary experiences. And right now I'm really sucked into Mic Drop because it's helping me really think about what that looks like in terms of a shorter program or a keynote. That's my favorite right now.
I love it. And are you doing any magic tricks?
Not yet, but just wait.
Okay. So no magic tricks, but give me one thing that you have taken from this podcast that has influenced you to do something differently in your own keynotes.
Oh gosh. The first sentence. There's so much information out there around what you should be walking out and saying immediately. And I think the thing that I've learned is you need to capture people in the first 10 seconds. And so saying or doing things that have anything to do with, oh, thank you for having me here today. Oh, hello, my name is Natalie. Get rid of all of that. Hopefully someone has already introduced you, but maybe in that first 10 seconds, it's a really interesting question or something intriguing, or maybe it's a statement. And so in our work, and I've been writing down different questions and different statements depending on what the keynote is, but I think, one of the things that we talk about in our work all the time is how impactful culture is. And so there's all kinds of data out there that talks about what culture does to a company, what it does to teams, and how it's impacting people. And a lot of it is shocking. So I think the main thing that I've learned from all the podcasts is how important the first 10 seconds is.
I love that because whenever I speak to a group of people, which is often, I find myself, the first thing I say is, it's like I'm hating myself while I'm saying it, but I'm saying it anyway, which is I'm so glad to be here and I'm so grateful for your time. And I'm not hating that because that's not true. I really am glad to be here and I really am grateful for your time. But it also feels like the most boring cliche way to start things. And I don't know. So I love this idea of, everybody knows you're glad we're here and grateful for our time. Say something else to get things started. Yeah. I'm going to use that one. I have to think of what my something else might be.
But we have a lot, when you really start thinking about it, we have a lot of content that is intriguing and surprising and even shocking. And so even saying, did you know that culture is 10 times more important than compensation? Just that. A lot of people don't realize that or know that. And then you say it and they're like, oh, well, that kind of makes sense. But within all of our content and everything we speak on, there's all kinds of interesting things to pull from. We just don't naturally do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we feel like it's mandatory that you say thank you and I'm glad to be here.
Or you say
But
hi,
at this
like,
point, feels
hi.
yeah. So, okay, I just realized that having to choose my favorite podcast is a little bit like feeling like name your favorite child.
Yes.
It's like, I just can't. There's not one.
So there's one that is also my favorite, and I didn't say it on purpose because I thought you might say it.
Okay.
I don't know if
Well, let me say my three and then you can
Okay.
I'm going to put three at the top of the list, and they're all my favorites in right now, meaning not my all-time favorites, but they're like the three that I vacillate between the most. One of them is We Can Do Hard Things with Glennon, Abby, and Amanda. One of them is my old standby. The first thing I ever listened to in podcasts is This American Life, which is like a public radio show. And then the third one is Smartless, which is this podcast with Will Arnett, Jason Bateman, and Sean Hayes. I'm not like self-reflective during it. I'm not like learning anything deep. I'm just listening to three guys who are really funny, kind of bullshit with each other, and then interview someone who's also funny.
I have seen little clips and I've heard about the one with Jason Bateman, and I keep thinking, oh, I've got to go listen to that. And I love that you're listening to that one.
Me too. It's like I can get overly invested in like personal development and intellectual growth. And a lot of my podcasts are like deep and meaningful, and I learn so much from them and I love them. And then sometimes I'm like, gosh, I just want to be entertained. And that is my I Just Want to Be Entertained podcast.
I love it. And I'm a little surprised that you're doing a podcast just for entertainment. What was your second one?
This American Life. Do you know that show?
No, but This American Life, a public broadcast show or whatever you said, sounds really boring.
I know it does. You would not think it was boring though, because it's all these stories about human nature. Like they take a theme and then they tell lots of stories based on that theme. Gosh, there was this theme like The Lies We Tell. And then it's 3 or 4 real person stories about people telling lies that got them in trouble. And it's a combination of like recording and interviewing, and they just edit it really well. It's been around, like it's the OG of podcasts, because it was on public radio probably 20 years ago before anything was in a podcast, when you had to listen to the radio, like one show at a time. So I don't know, give it a listen and then you can tell me how boring it is on a scale of 1 to 10 for you.
Okay. I think it sounds really good. It sounded a little bit too newsy or historical or something at first, the way you said it. And that didn't sound interesting. But yeah, it sounds really intriguing. I need some good ones. My favorite really is We Can Do Hard Things, but I stepped away for a little while to explore other podcasts. And I don't think I've listened since they announced that Sister had cancer.
I took a break too. And I just went back this week and I listened to the last couple.
Yeah. I need to go back. I always want to listen to that one. It's always good. I always want to listen to it, but then I tell myself I need some variety. So I leave and come back and then I catch up.
Yep. I was on a big We Can Do Hard Things binge for a while and felt the same. I was like, okay, I got to take a breather and go listen to Smartless and just be entertained.
Yeah.
Right. Let's talk about our own podcasts. So we did 11 prior to today. The first couple were just you and me. We were just kind of getting our feet wet, figuring things out. And then we brought on a guest every show after that. We talked about all sorts of things related to energy, connection, and courage. I feel like this is going to be choosing a favorite child too. But what's maybe one of them that stands out to you as, I don't know, something you love or you're proud of or you just really enjoyed doing?
If I think about the one I liked the most, it was when we were with Stacy. And I think I liked it the most because it just felt like, for those of you that don't know, Stacy is our chief strategy officer. And we did a podcast episode with her on mindset and reframing the way you think. And we focused on a hard topic, which was she was feeling overwhelmed at work. And so it felt like it was important, like it was a conversation we needed to have. It was really helpful to hear her talk about what she was feeling being at work with us. And at the same time, it felt like, oh, it's just me and Beck and Stace. Like it also kind of felt like our weekly leadership meetings that we have. So it felt like a real glimpse of the three of us and our working relationship and also having a hard conversation. And it also felt once I heard it back and it was edited, I was like, oh, that does sound like it would be helpful for some people. So it felt like it was helpful for people out there in the world that might listen to it.
That, for those of you that are listening, if you want to go back and hear that, I think that's episode 4 on emotional energy. I loved that one too, because that was, Stacey will be the first one to tell you, that was like super vulnerable for her. And I thought it was a great example of 2 things. One of them is you talking a person, in this case, Stacey, through one of the many tools we use around shifting mindset in a way that I thought kind of showed the power of that. And also it was, I think, a good demonstration of how we've been able to really truly walk the talk and have hard conversations with each other in a way that brings us closer. I just thought it was like you were just like right inside those 2 things.
Yeah. I really liked it. It was my favorite one for sure. And it's not picking Stacey as my favorite child, but maybe it is. I think it was it was more about the topic that I really love and the whole experience. And it felt like it was helpful.
Yeah. I felt like we were doing something rather than talking about something, and talking about something is super important, but it felt like we were doing the thing we were talking about instead of just talking about it.
And it almost could have been a conversation that we would have had not in a podcast.
Yes, completely.
Yeah. What about you?
I feel like what I'm going to say, I'm kind of embarrassed to say this because it's totally about me, but it's how I really feel. In terms of the podcast that was most helpful for me personally, it was actually, I think it's the first podcast where I told my story about what I call like the crash. And I remember being super nervous to say that out loud, and I had not really said it out loud. Actually, this is funny. That story I had really only verbalized out loud to other people one other time. And randomly, it was in a leadership training for one of our municipal clients. We were talking about burnout and overwhelm. And on the spot, I was like, I'm going to tell the story. And I was super nervous and I talked fast through it, but telling it was helpful. So saying it out loud was helpful because I feel like when you have an experience that you can say out loud and like you have enough perspective on it to kind of look back on it. I mean, I was still sort of in it, but not as much. It was so relieving to say it out loud. And it actually, I think saying it out loud to the 2 of you and anyone who was listening really allowed me to get even more perspective on it, to figure out what the last few years of my life, like why they felt so hard. That conversation was the catalyst for me to be able to do something with that experience that was healthy and helpful that I don't think I would have been able to do as quickly if I hadn't said it out loud.
And that was early on. I forgot we did that. And in thinking about what my favorite podcast was, I started thinking about guests and not episodes. But I liked that one too. And I think it is another great reflection of our work.
Yeah. It gave me where did I hear this phrase first? Or I think it was from Brene, where she was talking about like I had a vulnerability hangover. I totally had a vulnerability hangover. Like I said that story out loud and then I put it out there. And it took a long time for me to be able to listen to that podcast in its full produced format because I was just so nervous to hear myself tell it. But I'm over that. It's good. The world didn't fall apart and I am healthier because of it. That makes me think about like the next thing that maybe we'll talk about, which is what we have learned from these podcasts. And I was thinking about one of the things I have learned is that, well, this isn't something I'm learning. The whole process revalidated for me that I'm definitely my own worst critic, because I would leave every single podcast and think like, oh gosh, I'm not sure. I don't know how that conversation went. Like I really enjoyed it, but I'm not sure it's going to produce a valuable podcast. And then I would go back and listen to the recording and think, oh my gosh, hey, I mean, I know this is our first time and there's things that we would do better, but that was pretty good, or that wasn't bad. And I'm realizing that I often have an experience of something when I'm in it that isn't very objective. And doing a podcast allows you to go back and listen to an experience you had and like see it through a new lens. So one of the things we learned is that I'm my own worst critic. I learned other things too, but what's something you learned?
I'm tempted to say the thing that we already know, which is it just reinforced the fact that I don't want to, have it really, really planned out and timed out. And I much prefer just a casual conversation and let's just see where it goes. And even if it's, we're going to have Rebecca come on and she's going to share her experience, like I would much rather organically reply and respond to that rather than say, Natalie's going to spend 5 minutes and she's going to talk about this. And then, because my brain goes into overdrive trying to remember what I'm supposed to be saying. And then it drowns out what I actually want to say. And then I just get flustered and talk too fast and can't remember what I want to say. And so I think it reinforced that. We definitely, because we have a short podcast, have to keep it short. And I recognize that. But, even today, we both showed up today and we're laughing and we're like, okay, well, this is our last one. I'm unprepared too. Like there's no script today. This feels very comfortable for me. And I think the other thing I learned, which we've both talked about, is we would like something a little longer, a little bit more space to talk and explore our topics. And there was one other thing that wasn't the obvious thing, which was I didn't like a script. And I can't remember right now, but it'll come back to me here in a second. What about you?
I learned something similar, which is, this is kind of something I'm learning in my life in general right now, which is I actually also I know that I'm the one who's known as like, I need order and I need to plan and I need to know what the plan is and I need to execute. And that's true in a lot of ways. But what I'm learning is that I would actually also rather just show up to these podcasts and have someone say to me, like, today we're talking about this. And so the next time we do this, I think it would be good for me to step out of, Stacey and Haley have done so much of the planning and executing on this behind the scenes, but I've been involved in okay, let's make this our guest and then let's make sure we do this in the planning part. And I'm realizing that not just with podcasting, but with my life in general, I really want to step back from being the person who's in the planning and organizing role, because I think I have like a level of creativity that you can't access when you're in planning, organizing, and executing mode. So for the next podcast, I'd love to take even one step back from the planning, which is totally possible with our team, 100%. And that's like a microcosm of what's happening in my life where I'm like, okay, I'm the person in my family who's like, I've got the Google Doc with all the kid commute schedule. I'm like, I have all the mental tickers and I'm organizing them all. And because there's so many of them and I take responsibility for all of them, and I'm not very good at asking for help when I need it, it means I don't really have very much time in my life for creativity. There's not a lot of spare time for, playing the piano or gardening. And so this big lesson in my life right now that showed up in the podcast is if you can let go of some of the planning and organizing and executing, A, I'm happier. And B, it makes space for me to tap into what I think I can offer the world most right now, which is just like creativity and presence.
And I think what you just described is what I feel when I'm locked into, we're going to do an intro for 2 or 3 minutes, then hand it off to Rebecca, then we're going to hand it off to her. It's not necessarily what we're saying that's scripted, but the timeline. My head it sucks the creativity out of my head and is like, don't talk too much. Don't talk too long. It's not your turn to talk yet. And I think if just a more organic conversation is just like, we get in that flow, that's so much better. So I relearned that, which I already knew, but I think it was helpful to play around with. Sometimes we were really with guests, and limited time, we had to really follow a timeline. And then the other thing I remembered what it was I've learned that people are listening to us. And every time you say it, I'm like, you heard it? And I now have people asking for it. And so I had a person yesterday who said, gosh, I went to your website and I listened to all your podcasts. And I was like, you did? You listened to all of them? Yeah, they were great. Did you like it? And then there's like so many ways. The other thing I learned, and I think we all learned more recently, is, gosh, the podcast topics are so relatable in our content. Like every training we do, there's a podcast that aligns with our content. And so even just being able to talk about it more on a day-to-day basis and include it in conversations with clients has been really helpful because people want to hear it and they love talking more about it. I had a group yesterday and they were writing down. I said, you have to go to our website to get it. Oh, good. Which one's your favorite? Oh, good. They're only 20. Like, people are into it. And I don't know why, but I'm surprised. I'm surprised.
I have to tell you something. So last week I went to one of our newer clients. This is the first time that we've been to their office. And the woman who's at the front greets me at the door. And I said, hi, I'm Rebecca Johnson. I'm here to meet so-and-so. She said, I know. I follow you guys. I know who you are. She really stopped him. I was like, you follow us? Where? She was like, on social media, listen to your podcast. And I literally was like, I stood still. I was like, you do? And then I was like, oh, no. I mean, oh, good. Yeah, of course you do.
Well, and maybe it's because we've thought about this as this is our big experiment to see, do we like it? Do we love it? Do we want to do different things differently? And so I've never thought like, wow, I'm going to run into people and they're going to say they heard it and they listened to it. And then
this is like this private thing we're doing in a back room that no one's going to listen to as far as I was concerned.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. Let me see. I'm trying to think. There was one other thing. Oh, I know this other thing I learned. I'm doing it right now. Is I learned from listening to our podcast that I talk too fast. So I haven't said this out loud to anybody, but I am working on talking slower. Like right now, I just slowed my language down and I can feel it. But listening to myself talk fast, I thought, oh my gosh, that is hard to follow and kind of an anxious energy. So it's made me work on slowing my speech down. And this whole talking too fast thing, I was reminded when I first started working on it that when I was like 17, one of my best friends, her name was Christy. And Christy's mom said to me a couple times, like, I always know when you and Christy have been hanging out a lot because she talks so fast. So I've been talking too fast my whole life. And at age 50, I'm going to slow it down.
I've been told many, many times that I talk too fast, and I was told that yesterday. Do you think any of the fastness you're hearing is in editing to speed us up to shorten the podcast?
No, I started to pay attention to it everywhere, like just in my regular conversation. And then a few months after I noticed that, I got an evaluation from a training, and this woman said, I love when Rebecca facilitates. I love what she's talking about, but she's so hard for my brain to follow because she talks too fast. And so I was like, okay, all right, I've got to really slow it down. And what's cool is I noticed that when I slow my talking down, I can literally feel my body relax. My heart rate slows down. Like talking too fast actually creates a sense of internal anxiety that I can calm just by focusing on speaking slower. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, I can feel that too. I definitely can talk too fast. And it's usually because I'm telling myself I need to because we're going to run out of time. And so instead of being strategic about what I actually focus on and slow down on what's important, I just say it all and speed it up. And that's not good either.
Yeah. Okay. So we're both working on talking. I always think of you as a person who talks very moderately, though.
I definitely have. Since high school, I pay attention to it. And I think I'm feeling what you feel as I start getting revved up or excited. And then I'm talking really, really fast. And then if I have caffeine, I can talk even more fast. And I was in a program yesterday where there was just lots and lots of technical setbacks with setting up technology in the room. And so I got started for a morning session and an afternoon session really late. And that just was like it flipped the switch on the talking fast because it felt so important that the audience gets all of what I was bringing that day. And the way they were going to get it was real fast because we're short. And then the CEO said to me, this is amazing, but you talk fast. And so then I was able to slow down in the afternoon. But yeah, same.
All right. So speaking of what you've taken away that's like good for you, our podcast is obviously about energy, connection, and courage, managing energy, prioritizing connection over rightness and ego, and being able to choose the courageous thing even when it's hard. So because of our podcast, what's like the thing around energy, connection, and courage that you are either like remembering you need to lean into or practicing or experimenting with, just like something you've been reminded about or learned through a podcast around energy, connection, or courage?
In general, I'm reminded of how we're all struggling with the same things. Like we're all imperfect. We're all human. We're all struggling with the same things. Gosh, I don't know. That's a tough question. I didn't know that one was coming at me.
I know. I told you I was going to give you a surprise because you like a spontaneous one.
That's not the surprise I wanted. So the question is, what's something I've learned related to energy, connection, and courage?
No, and it doesn't have to be something you've learned that's new, because not a lot of what we talked about is like new to you. But you know, sometimes you hear something and you're like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm reminded of that and I need to. So I'll give you an example and I'll give you some stall time. Something that maybe has come up for me is around courage and kind of choosing to say the courageous thing. We had a couple different conversations about being courageous in the workplace, but it also makes me think about being courageous everywhere. And so I am really leaning hard into saying what feels like the courageous thing, even when it feels risky or like it might make another person uncomfortable. And that's everywhere, you know, with our team, with my family, with clients. And usually there's two things I'm reminding myself of, remembering. One is that courage almost always means I'm going to be honest or transparent with you right now in a way where I wouldn't normally be honest or transparent. I'm going to share my actual thoughts or my actual uncertainties or my lack of knowledge or my worries about something. So courageous communication really equals, you know, honesty or transparency. And what I'm learning and relearning and learning again is that every time I make the decision to say something that feels risky, but like the courageous thing, not only does nothing bad happen, but something good almost always happens. Like the worst thing that happens when I choose to say the courageous thing is that someone else gets visibly uncomfortable. And maybe the worst case scenario is they're like if I say something to, you know, if maybe I get my family involved in a courageous conversation over dinner, you know, at some point, one person in my family will be like, okay, this is just too much. Well, I don't want to talk about it anymore. But that's the worst thing that happens. What typically happens instead is that I notice other people being able to be honest and transparent in a way that I don't think would have. And I feel closer to them. And we get something like explored or resolved or figured out that we wouldn't if I hadn't taken the chance. So I'm like leaning super hard right now into courageous communication, not just as this lofty idea, but as the practice of just being honest and transparent as often as I can.
I love it. And I think, you know, just hearing in your experience that it not only has nothing bad happened, but it's opened the door for other people to do the same is so helpful for other people that are in the room or feeling the same or now feel safe that they can, you know, speak up or say something. As you were talking, it was reminding me of, you know, when I was thinking about what was my favorite podcast, I also really liked the podcast with Todd. And one thing that stood out to me, and this is not new at all, but it's a struggle that I've had forever, is keeping my mouth shut and listening to what people are really saying in an effort to connect with them. And Todd said something. There was a quote. So I can't remember the exact quote that Todd said, but it had something to do with what it takes to create true connection and that you need to have trust first. And it was such a true statement about what actually creates trust. But what we'll do is we'll find that quote from Todd that was so valuable to me that I can't remember it. We will put it in the notes of the podcast.
And on that, I think we should wrap, Nat. So let's finish with the way that we always end our shows, which is with a little secret, a fun tidbit, a little bit of information about you that most people don't know. And let's try to do something about you that I don't know. And I'll try to do something about me that you don't know.
Okay. So one of the things that I do when I travel and I'm packing is if I'm bringing big shoes, so like high heels or boots or any kind of big shoes, the way that I pack is I take all my underwear and all my bras, all the little things, and I shove it into the shoes to save space so I could have a carry-on. And so that's important to know about this story because I was at a client site, this is probably 6 months ago, and I had my dressy combat boots that I wear sometimes, and I had put them on, And did I already tell you this story?
No, but I think I know where it's going. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you do. And I had wore high heels the day before and I had put these combat boots on. I was like, gosh, my feet feel like they're swollen. Like maybe I just shouldn't wear. So I'm walking around and I walk into the big room where I'm getting ready to speak. And I'm like, it's just this one foot. Why my shoe is so tight? Like, did I injure my foot? So I was sitting at a table and I wasn't going to speak for another hour or so, but I was sitting in the audience. I was sitting at a table. I thought, I got to take my shoe off. Something is wrong with my foot. So when I go to take my shoe off, a pair of underwear falls out. And I don't know if it's clean underwear or dirty underwear, but I grab it really quick and I put it in my pocket. And I had some baggy pants on and I thought, I can't keep these underwear in my pocket like all day. I'm getting ready to go up on stage. And I feel like, and I always put my hands in my pocket. So I thought I'm going to feel them. It's going to be distracting. But, I have to like get up. I didn't have my backpack with me or my phone. It was across the room. So I get up and I'm like trying to be all secretive. And I reach into my pocket and I'm just going to shove it in my backpack. So I unzip my backpack real quick, shove it down there and zip it back. And then I come and sit down. I'm like, okay, I'm good. And then I look off to the right and I realize everybody's got their backpack over there. And 3 people have the same backpack as me. 3 people. They're all lined up. And I was like, did I just put my underwear in someone else's backpack? And I was panicking. And so I finally got up and it took me a minute to figure out, like, where did I put the underwear and which one of these is mine? And my backpack has a little thing on the side with an N, like my initials on it. So I pick it up and I open it and they're not freaking in there. And I'm like, I'm going to have to open up a stranger's bag. And this is in the middle of somebody else on a stage speaking. And I had to do it. I just sat there and I pretended like I was going through my backpack and then I casually switched them. I had to pull my underwear out of someone else's backpack and like in a room in front of all these people and secretly put it back into my backpack and sit down. It was awful. It was awful.
Okay. I have a story that is not that funny, but it might rival it a little bit in terms of it's about the same thing. And we're just really like, what am I going to share today? I can't think of my fun tidbit, but your underwear story reminded me of another underwear story I have, which is I was standing. So, sometimes when you do laundry, like there's static cling and things get stuck inside other things. I'm wearing this pair of pants and I'm standing in front of a group of people. And like, something feels like it's tickling, like just above my ankle. And I look down like, no. So I don't know. It's just going on. It's like, there's something bothering me on my skin down there and I can't figure out what it is, but I'm facilitating. And so I finally get to the point where like I send people into breakout groups and I just sort of look down at my ankle and I look over closely and I see like a little tip of my underwear coming out of the bottom of my pants. So it must have been clean underwear that got stuck in my pants. And like over the course of the day, I worked it down to my ankle. So like I just like very quietly backed up behind the podium, hoping my underwear would fall out. And I put my underwear out of my pants, quietly stuffed it in my purse.
And there you have it.
Oh my God. And on that note, we will wrap up episode 12 of our Energy, Connection, and Courage in the Workplace series and say goodbye to you for now. Nat, do you want to give everybody a little preview of what's coming, or at least what we know about what's coming?
Well, what we know about what's coming is this is our last episode of the year, and we're going to take a little bit of a break because we're going to restructure our podcast based on what we've learned over the last year. And this is very exciting. We're also taking a break because we're going to be writing a book. And so we don't know when, but it will be coming soon. And so we need the space to do that and redesign our podcast. So we will be back online in the future.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening.
I'm Rosie Ward, and this is Show Up as a Leader. To learn more, head over to peopleforwardnetwork.com and, of course, hit that follow button.